Welcome to the Totum Podcast. I'm Tim Irvin here with my partner, Dr. Stacy Irvin.
We are super excited that you decided to join us. We're coming to you from a live gym at Totum Life Science. Tim and I have worked in this industry for over 30 years, meaning that we have tons of great things to share with you.
Not only that, but we have great guests who will help to educate both of us and you with all things wellness.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Welcome to the Totum Podcast. We are very excited to talk about an interesting and informative subject, which is wrestling bears, tigers, lions, and other interesting training methods. And our guests today are Dave Salmoni and Rzazewski. Awesome.
Nice work. I like that. You got to a great start.
I had to really work
I was like, I can't even attempt that
The
one.
hardest part for me is over.
Yeah.
I gave the cheat sheet.
Good.
It was good. Okay, so I'm going to introduce these two lovely gentlemen. Dave Salmoni, he's been a Totum member client for years and years. Got to know you, Dave. Undergrad in zoology. Thesis there was tracking hibernation patterns in black bears.
Correct.
Which is pretty typical for anybody's thesis.
As you would do.
Yeah,
As you would do.
exactly. Working on a PhD now, which
Currently.
is pretty amazing. You're an author 4 times over and working on your own full book, which,
I'll have to come back for that one
yeah, I'm excited
when it's
about.
ready to
Yeah,
come
we
out.
can't wait.
I'm excited about that. Animal trainer, including tigers, bears, lions, and other interesting household animals. TV star and producer, including shows for the Discovery Channel, which include, among others, Into the Lion's Den. Sharks, are they hunting us? Which is a topic that, or a question that a lot
I'm
of
gonna say
listeners
yeah.
have had. Animal Planet shows, your own series called Deadly Islands. I thought about doing a show like that, and then I didn't.
You didn't do it.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
I appreciate that only because the competition would hurt.
You've been numerous times on the Jimmy Kimmel Show and the Tonight Show for many years, and obviously you're devoted to taking care of your body for work in the past, like any high-performance athlete, and now for your everyday life. Andre, you have been a personal trainer for 20 plus years, but prior to and during that time, a professional natural bodybuilder, multiple championships under your belt and under 4 different natural bodybuilding associations. You've also trained competitive bodybuilders and fitness competitors, fitness models, executives, and we've seen you in action for many years here now. You're exceptional at what you do, and we can see it in the results of the clients that you have. You are also an author being a contributor, regular contributor to several fitness publications. You're a sponsored athlete with Perfect Sports, which in Canada anyway is the #1 sports nutrition supplement company, both from a quality perspective and sales perspective. And you know what's interesting is you're also devoted to taking care of your body for professional and life reasons. Yes. So welcome to the Totum Podcast.
Well, the great introductions. You did a lot of
These are
lifting
the-
up front.
Solid.
These are big introductions. These
Yeah.
are the biggest ones we've had so far. So we must be doing something right.
It's either that or the 2 bigger egos, like, don't forget to add this, don't forget to add that. If you don't say elephants at some point in my introduction, I'll be very upset.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the last. It's impressive, obviously. It's amazing.
I want you to intro me every time I walk into a room.
Why don't we just record
Let's
it,
do
and
that.
when you come up onto the gym floor, it's
We can just play that.
That's wicked.
I like that. I think it's
Okay,
fair.
Stacey, you got question number 1.
Question number 1. Today I was outside. It's a beautiful day. I put shorts on to walk my dogs. I was like, wow, first time this year. And I was thinking about you guys because I knew you were both coming on the podcast. My question is, when it gets to be spring and warm, and you look like you two do, is that a really exciting time where you're like, it's like game on, like all my hard work
Revealing
from
the
the whole
beans.
thing. Like how does it feel? Because I've never felt like that in spring. I want to know. First from you. I've got a different kind of question for you.
You're going to be disappointed with my answer because I bike to work at 20 to 5 every morning.
Right.
And it is probably 10 degrees cooler biking.
Yeah.
So I'm way overdressed right now.
Okay. Okay.
So-
Okay.
Once I
But
get
as
here,
a friend,
once
I
I
have socialized with him many times, and rarely does he have a full shirt on.
Exactly.
In the summer. In the summer,
well,
in the
this
summer.
technically
it's
for
tarps
Andre,
off. It
this
is
Yeah.
tarps off. If that's what
Right?
the question is,
Right?
I'll add some honesty here. I get to see him tarps off every now and again when we socialize in the summer.
Okay. That's the answer I was expecting.
and this is a full shirt for Andre.
It is. That's
Yeah. So to be clear,
I don't like sleeves.
That's right. Yeah, there is an allergy there. I always wondered if he had any shirts with sleeves.
Okay. And Dave, hibernation's over.
Yes.
Bears are on their way out. So, do you have a similar feeling about spring? I know you're an intellectual guy. I picture you kind of spending winter writing stuff and thinking about things and producing things. What is spring and summer like for you?
I think that it's changed. I'm now somewhat, I call myself retired. So I think that the pre-retirement versus post-retirement. So oddly, when I was working, obviously travel was a big part. I was away all the time.
Right.
A perfect year was away through the winter, like go to somewhere warm, Southern Hemisphere, go do
Got it.
those things. And then springtime in Toronto used to be my favorite time. Like everyone's out, everyone's having fun. So yeah, summer meant that. Like there was a unhibernation because I'd be home for 1 month, 2 months of the year. And I feel like, especially when I was young, 20s and 30s, it was like, okay, I have to get all my socializing in because I'm about to go live in a tent for another year and a half. So spring definitely felt like a coming out of hibernation for me, but in a different way. It wasn't to take my shirt off. It was more just to take any rational brain out and go.
But you did take your shirt off.
as much as I could.
Right.
As much
Okay.
as I
Good.
could.
Good to hear.
okay. So Andre, obviously, Dave came to you at some point and said, "I need to train because I might be wrestling a bear."
Yeah, and we had already started working together. So we had been prepping to get him as fit as possible. And then we had to take it to another level for the bear training. So he said, I'm doing this show and I'm going to be, tracking bears and living in the bush for over a month, I think.
The first bear one, I think, was at least that. Yep.
Yeah. So we have to build as much muscle as possible. And then I have to be able to escape from a bear if I am pinned down. So I had to design a plan, not only to maximize strength, but also, getting out of positions, make him as agile as possible.
Yeah. Mobility,
Yeah.
agility,
I think the broader,
Explosiveness.
explosiveness.
yeah, the broader strokes of that is with my level of work, there was always some level of, hey, Andre, I need to look good. I'm going on a talk show.
Of
So
course.
It's T-shirt ready.
Yeah.
And that was then a lot more bodybuilding. Let's get muscle in
Easy,
the right spots.
easy.
Like it was,
Got a plan
go
for
back
that.
to his plan.
Yeah.
And he's like, here's the diet, here's the plan, do it, and I know you'll succeed. And then there was these times when I'd be like, okay, now I've signed a job for this animal. Typically speaking, I could say, here are the 3 things this animal's going to do that I can't survive. And then, Andre like, okay, well, they're going to have to avoid getting into those 3 particular things. And so at that point, then we don't care about the washboard abs. It's like, as Andre mentioned, it's just like, we're going to bulk up now because the more mass you have, the more power you have. And then particularly, I would say, okay, if it's a shark, I had to do this. If it was a tiger, I had to do that. But, along this subject line, when it's a bear, bears only really have power in grabbing, digging, pulling. And so it's like Andre, like whatever happens, they can bite me, they can swat me, but I cannot get under one of these animals. Instead, Andre's like, I'm thinking back as he's thinking of bulk up, power, explosive, but then it's also balance. It's also like, it's lunges, but it's not always lunges on flat ground. It's also not lunges straight back. It's lunges, it's back sometimes, it's sideways other times. So it's a matter of having a program that's like, we're going to try to put you in every single scenario and have you in the best position. On top of all of those things, every single day training cardiovascularly, because as I always said to you, like a bear fight's only going to last 3 minutes. You're either out of it in 3 minutes or you're dead. So we're not going to go and jog for 45 minutes. We're going to go and so like if you've ever seen Andre and I train, it's a high volume and it's, hey, I'm tired, I can barely breathe. Do 6 more, I don't really
Totally,
care.
yeah.
The bear's not going to care, so I don't care. So that's kind of the context that I would put it in to try to explain what I did to him, saying like, my life is in your hands. Make sure you get me ready.
Well, we did a mix of heavy weights, but we also integrated, plyometrics and some cardio. So, a good example, like we do squats, big, high volume, heavy weight, drop sets. As soon as we finish that, now let's do some jump squats. Let's do 50 of these. Same thing with lunges. We do walking lunges, then we do, plyometric jump lunges, right? So everything to tax the muscles fully. And even those side laterals that we used to do.
Oh, it's hard. But it's kind of like, we were kind of reminiscing as this was coming up, is like, you forget that's all I would think of. So at a certain point when you're dealing with film and television, we're training through all the parts of me trying to sell a show. Once I sell a show, oh great, we celebrate, we did sell a show. And now it's like, okay, oh crap. Now everybody's producing and getting everything ready. The only thing that I'm responsible for is to stay alive. We've done this thing, we've sold this idea.
Right.
And it's the only part of the bargain is I have to come out alive.
Game time.
So at a certain point, Andre and I mean, he would probably take the cue from me, but he could probably see the certain seriousness come over my face when I come into the gym. It wasn't the bro hugs and the chit chat. My wife used to laugh at me. I'd come home from an hour and a half with Andre or more, and she'd be like, well, how's Andre doing? I don't know. How is this about his life or that about his life? I don't know. And she's like, how can you spend this much time with someone and not, like, we wouldn't speak to each other. It would be, here's the weight, get to work, and it was a serious amount of, so there's a certain level of guilt that I would have saying, like, that my life's in your hands, because if you do a bad job, I'll pay the price. So it was very serious stuff for a
high
certain period of time.
motivation.
And we worked till absolute failure on every single workout.
And
That's a lot.
And another factor in a lot of this is I could be finishing a shark show and going into a bear show.
Right.
So a lot of times it's like, hey, we're doing all this, and you got 3 weeks. What can you do for me in 3 weeks? And it's, if you know Andre, it's not a pie roll, and I don't think we can do anything in 3 weeks. It's like, we're going to be fine, no problem. You're going to eat way more than you thought you were going to eat. You're going to lift way more than you thought you could lift, and we'll get you there if you do what you're told. Which is, my job then to be disciplined enough to listen.
So it sounds a little bit like you approach the workouts like a competitive athlete would approach a competition, where it's like you're zoned in, it's going to be hard. You got to get the most out of it because it's really necessary. Yep. Is that sort of was your approach?
This also could be death.
I was just going to say, but the athletes won't
like
die
next
on the other side of it. Like, I picture, we've watched boxers train, and you see them dig down a little deeper. And I think there's how obsessed I am with human instincts and that type of thing. I think there's definitely an instinct. Like, if I'm going to get the crap beat out of me, that's going to motivate me a bit more for training. I can't even imagine I'm going to get the potentially beat up really badly to the point where I might die. Lots of those fighters don't go in thinking about dying, which is what you did, which is a really incredible motivator.
No ref's going to stop it, and no one's going in to help them.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's an interesting progression because, and we've talked about, Andre and I have been together for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there's a progression of that. So there is the first few years when you're not used to having your life risked.
Yes.
When I feel the fear of, if this happens, I'm going to die. But there's also the next level of, coming in on a Tuesday, telling Andre I was out last night. I didn't eat the right meals. I didn't hydrate well enough. And Andre having to remind me, like, you can't get too comfortable. Like the idea of the champion athlete, as you say, the champion boxer that, when Tyson decided to get too heavy and he lost to Buster Douglas, was it? It was clearly because he just didn't train hard. He wasn't scared of Buster Douglas anymore.
Yeah.
There was absolutely times that I forgot I was dealing with a 500-pound lion or a big grizzly bear, and my confidence in myself would get so high that he would then have to say, okay, you didn't eat your plan, you didn't drink your plan, you feel terrible, oh, you got a sore shoulder. The bear doesn't care, and so I don't either.
Yeah, and they're not doing press conferences like the box. Like, they're not reminding you, like, I'm going to kill you, buddy.
And if there is no fear to motivate you, because I've been doing it for now 15 years, and I'm super comfortable, and I'm hanging out with my pal in the gym, there was definitely lots of moments where I had to be reminded by Andre that, like, okay, this is real, and there is no time for chit chat. Do not ask me how everything's going. We'll talk about it later if we have time.
And how long did you two train that way? Like, how long did the competitive period last for?
Okay, I would say we started in 08, maybe 08-ish, and that would have been 09. I did Into the Lion's Den. No, I did Into the Pride in 2010, and you definitely trained me for that. So, and I think at least a year before that. So, I mean, so it has to be in that ballpark anyway. But then there would have been till 2015, 2016, when the real intense part of my career was happening. So the shark shows where you weren't really sure the situations you'd be in. The Deadly Island show where you were away from a gym and definitely risking my life in different ways. But then also the portion of that, maybe the interesting part for a lot of the fitness people, is that in amongst there, I had 2 spinal injuries. So at a certain point, maybe after, maybe 6 or 7 years of us training, we've gone through now a certain part. I was squatting, I clicked something in my back, and now I can't feel down the left side of my leg, and yet still I need to work. And this is certainly a time of my life when I did need the mortgage payment, and I didn't have any other backup career. And I was like, Andre, we need to still get there. I know my left leg doesn't work, but how do we now do that? Oh my God. And then he would have to figure that out. So now we're getting powerful, but we can't put any weight across the back or whatever it happened to be. That was all his job. And I think we went unilateral maybe for like 2 years or something like that. So I would say, to answer your question, maybe 8 years of the super intensive. Some overlap with, okay, now we're rehabbing Dave, trying to get him to a certain position. And then until at the latter half of my career, there was a lot more talk show, a lot more, I would say more entertainment, a lot less danger, because it just wasn't a popular part of television anymore. So I was hosting gigs. And then it was just him getting my body ready, preparing myself from those injuries, and also still being ready for those one times that the what ifs that we would happen. So it was I'd say 15 years of that in total.
I don't know how much of this you want to edit, but I've been here since 2010. So it wouldn't have been before that.
Well, 2010 it was into the Pride, and we definitely trained for that.
I think maybe like towards the end of that.
Yeah. So maybe I got the numbers wrong, but that's typical.
Close,
that's
like
typical.
8-ish years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I was thinking more like 8.
Which is a pretty intense period of time, and not dissimilar than, professional hockey player, football player, gymnast, or whatever else. You're in the zone for a long period of time.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say, right?
Yep, for sure.
And so how did it influence your training with other clients, and like somebody that might be listening, like what can they take out of that might be of interest to that?
So I do a similar approach with all of my clients, and I want everybody to be in the absolute best possible shape they can be, the strongest they can be, the quickest they can be, best endurance, best cardiovascular endurance, best muscular endurance. But there's a certain point that people want to be pushed, and you have to, as a trainer, you have to gauge that, right? Everybody has certain goals, but they only want to do a certain amount. And I would say, and not just because you're sitting beside me, Dave is probably the hardest working client I've ever had, bar none. Like this guy, when we first started training, I remember the first time we did legs together. Oh. And we were in the squat rack and did a ridiculous drop set. It was a 100 rep drop set, I think. And Dave ran over to the fountain area, and he just started dry heaving so loud. And Dave is, if anybody knows Dave, he is definitely the loudest guy in the gym. But he's dry heaving, and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done to this guy? And he's like, I'm okay. And he's like, hold the hand up. And then he comes back not even a minute later. He's like, I'm good. Let's keep going. Okay. And that's exactly how 80% of our workouts were.
Now it's common practice.
Trained to the point where he would just throw up and then just keep going. So that's not common.
Yeah, that's
right?
incredible.
So, I think, like I said, what have I done similar with other people? I push everybody to the extent of their capabilities.
Right.
And, as when you push as hard as you can each workout, you're going to adapt and you're going to progress. But not everybody wants to go
Psychologically, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Psychologically and physically, though. You can just do you're right. The psychological part is huge, right? You got that sort of lactic acid threshold,
yes,
which improves each time you train. So you start to realize, I can push past that burn, and I can get a couple more reps. And then the next week you're I'm familiar with that feeling. I can go a little farther. So you can constantly progress that way, and the strength also increases. But like just for example with legs, so much of it's mental. So you get to a point where you're fatigued and everything's telling you put it back on the rack, like if you're squatting or anything. But Dave kind of has another gear where he just like, yeah, there's that burn, and then I'm just going to keep going and going until I collapse, and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep going again.
Which is why Andre has to be strong enough to catch the bar. I mean,
It's incredible.
To interject into that point, I mean, it's also, he talked about when he started here, we must have been coming here around the same time. This is how I choose trainers, and this is how I chose him, and this is why I've never left him, is that there's lots of people who train and lots of people who have to figure out how hard to push people. And I'm not here to insult anyone, but Andre's clients always progressed. And it was,
Right.
in my belief, is personal training is results driven.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about all your fancy techniques.
Yeah.
Show me the results. And in my particular case, my results were dependent on life and death. If I didn't get there, I would be risking my life a little bit more. So it was very quickly that I watched him with his clients that I was like, oh, 2 weeks ago, that guy wasn't as big as he is.
Right.
2 weeks ago, she didn't squat that much. 2 weeks ago, that form or that balance, like obviously someone that understands fitness, as you're picking a trainer,
It's
you became
important.
way more selective, and you have a lot more thought into how you choose somebody. If you're going to give them your time and your money, and particularly in my case, like my career and life, it's like, okay, Andre, like you take this as serious as I do. And I think I must have sent him a 50 text or more at the end of every sort of like block of our training.
Oh my God, I love it.
Where I'd be like, I love having a trainer that seems to care maybe even a little bit more than I care. Like I really wanted to get better and get stronger, but like on the bad days, he would look at me like, you didn't do it. And on the good days, like we would both be just as excited. And I think that choosing someone who understood how to push those right buttons, to push a right amount, like when he's like, you could do 6 more, and you're like, I can't even do 1 more. But you get the 6 more out, and Andre's ability in that way was how I became, what I became and how I got those results. And it's absolutely his skill. I was like, you could know what he knows about fitness, but I don't think any human will have the same sensitivity of understanding the person they're training to know where they can be pushed, how they can be pushed, how to push the right buttons. And also in my case, like I think that he motivated me through sometimes draconian measures.
Right.
And I can imagine, like I've watched him train my wife, and he does the exact opposite, because she would respond to the same thing. So Andre definitely has, outside of all the intellect.
Should leave.
She wouldn't leave. And that's an important part of that job, is like, you need to understand me as a client, and you need to get me to those results. And the reason why all of his clients get results is because he has that personal skills that isn't so much about fitness. It's more about understanding a person, watching a person, listening to a person, and saying, this is what this person needs right now to get those 3 more reps out. Which is how I chose. I recognized it very quickly, and I said, "Oh yeah, hopefully Andre will train with me."
A huge skill, an important skill.
Yeah, I think so.
When I look at both of you, the other thing that comes to mind, and when you talk about Andre calling you out, like on a few things, saying, you didn't do what you need to do last night, you didn't focus on your recovery enough. And I know when we've been out with Andre at Totum staff events, and Tim and I are drinking, and Andre's kind of like, yeah, no, that's not for me right now.
That's right.
And there's a huge respect I have for that level of discipline. And I wonder if that was a part of, what you guys kind of worked on and what you do. And I guess in many ways, I don't understand a lot of like how you get to that level. You are the most disciplined person I know. I would say the most disciplined around here. And I think it's incredible. And maybe is there like a secret or something that helps you stay that disciplined?
I think, from years of competing, you sort of get into that routine. And I'll give you a quick backstory. Like when I was in university, I was like 200 in the 240s. I was quite heavy, a higher body comp, but like still training all the time.
Yep.
But I was, bulking up. And I also felt very lethargic at that weight. I didn't feel like I felt very strong in the gym, but just day to day didn't feel great. And when I would diet down for competitions, I would eliminate a lot of things: alcohol, complex carbs, breads, etc. And I would really notice how good I felt. And it wasn't really until I started putting them back in after a competition that I started feeling lethargic again, everything else. So I thought, I really don't like how I feel eating this way. So the diet part has been pretty easy. I've found foods that I really like, which also, it's not about body comp as much now, but it's more the way that I feel, right? That the way that I feel when I'm training, the way that I feel just energy levels throughout the day. And that's what keeps it easy for me, is because I'm just in this routine. I prep my meals sort of at the same time every day. I eat the same thing every single day. So it's easy. I don't have to think about it. I have to go out and try to find something healthy, because that's, I already have everything taken care of. It's actually easier like this than it would be if I came to work. Like when I first started working in the city and I was at the Eaton Center, I'd go down, to the food court,
Yeah.
try to find something healthy, like good luck, right? And then you're having pasta, or you're having anything when you're hungry seems sort of reasonable, right? But I just find it a lot easier eating this way. I feel way better. And, thankfully, it's great for body comp as well, right? So,
And then from and sort of as someone who's training's perspective, when you get his workout plan and you look at his rep range, for example, you're like, that's impossible. Literally, most of us, at some point, I guarantee you, most of his clients have looked at his workout and said, that's impossible. That's too much. When you look at his diets that he gives you,
Right.
that's impossible.
Yes.
And then he looks at you and says, well, I do it. I've done it. So the discipline really helps as a client, because I have been many times nodding off on the couch, knowing I have one more meal to eat. And I wake up and I'm like, I guess I got to eat it. Like Andre can do it.
It's accountability.
If he can do it, it's not impossible.
Right.
And so there was many, many times that I was ready to go, well, it was good enough. I did 80% of what I was supposed to today. And Andre doesn't do 80%. And it helps, because it's good that, he's a friend, and so it's like you can kind of relate to him a lot more, but it's not unattainable if you hang out with daily somebody that does. So his discipline certainly helps as a client going, okay.
I think too, it's your point of it feels different. It feels better, which makes those decisions super easy, right? Like, so, if most of us have the experience of having drank too much alcohol, next day you feel bad. So then over time, you're like, okay, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to be out with friends. I'm not going to drink that much because I don't want to be hungover. That's a direct correlation, which is kind of similar to what you're talking about, that a lot of people don't know because they've been eating these dulling, dulling foods for too long. Their bodies are just used to it. They're accustomed to a fog that they don't even know is there. And if they give themselves the opportunity for 2 or 3 weeks to peel themselves out of that, then all of a sudden they're like, wow, like I sleep better, I've got more energy, my workouts are better if somebody's working out.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that over the years.
Getting to that point is what people need to do, and paying attention and being mindful about, like, how does my body change, and how does it feel? How does my brain change, my relationships with people? Like, how does all that work? And hopefully if somebody pays attention to it, that it flips them into, okay, I'm going to do some better. It may not be Andre level stuff, but it's where they can go and they feel comfortable with going. And if every once in a while they make another jump to another level, then all of a sudden 3 or 4 years down the road, they've changed a lot from that person that was in the fog all the time.
Results are motivating, right? And that's the thing. That's what gets people to sort of start doing more of those things, right? So I do give the plan, right away. I give the meal plan, and I'll give the training program. I train, people on average 2 up to 5 times a week, but they're only training with me twice a week. Those other days, they're responsible for that stuff.
Sure.
But when they do, someone like Dave, I give him a plan, he executes it to the letter right from the get-go. And the same thing when I was training competitors, it was similar. Like, someone's got to get ready for a show at a certain time. They've got to be strict, or they know they're not going to be ready. But for the average person, nobody really dives in 100% right away. It's sort of a process. But once they start to see those results, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll start to add this in, some of these supplements, and maybe I'll start to take some of this stuff out, and maybe I'll increase the frequency of training, and then those results snowball. So That's the thing. Results are motivating. That's how you get dialed in 100%.
Absolutely. And I think that, Dave, you mentioned something I think for listeners is a great tip. So when you picked Andre to work with, you observed, right? So if you have the opportunity to be in a facility on your own, kind of looking at what's happening there with these different trainers, and pick the person that you think fits your style best, because you wanted somebody that could really push you. There's somebody else, maybe it's somebody that is coming off a abdominal surgery of some sort, and they're 69 years old, and they're thinking about getting a trainer for the first time, and they're going to have different needs than what you did. But observing and getting a sense of, well, that seems right to me, or right for me. That I think is a great way for people to approach finding somebody to help them.
Yeah, and I think that, excuse me, I think one of the harder parts of that, I mean, obviously you guys would know that better than me, you have to answer that question for yourself first. Yeah. What do I want? Like, if the trainer's asking you, hey, what are you trying to achieve? If the first time you thought about it is your first paid session, you're behind the boat. You gotta, I think that the only advice I'd give somebody in choosing a trainer is start by knowing what you want, so that you can go through the process you just described.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice.
And well, the other piece too is that Andre is unique in a way. When we worked with the kids, so you came and helped me with the Totum training camp, the minute he walks in the room, all the kids are convinced. And then when you do arm wrestling and pull-ups in front of them, then they're his hugest fans. There are trainers out there that have a lot of knowledge, but don't dedicate the amount of time that you do to staying in shape and to probably like trying new equipment and trying new techniques. And I think that that's a very valuable resource for anyone. And I know it's great for us here at Totum, because you're still pushing those boundaries and you're still learning new things and trying new things.
Always.
And I think, and our industry changes, almost on the week, right? And you have to be able to say, okay, that stuff is total bullshit. And this stuff, oh, that's interesting. Or this piece of equipment, wow, that's a new take on something that we used to do. This is better. This is more efficient. It feels better. It moves better. And I think that type of information is so valuable, but you've got to be in it, doing it, to really know what some of those things feel like.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, I've tried every rep scheme. I've tried pretty much every exercise that I've seen in magazines, videos, and social media, whatever. I'll try it out, and if I feel like it works, it's something that I'd like to incorporate into my regimen and my client's regimen, right? But I'll definitely try everything out myself first before I put somebody else through it.
I don't want to call you out on something here, but there's something you don't try. Every single one of your clients at some point has said, I want to put you through a workout. I want to make you do free more. I want to give you bonus reps. And I have never heard him say yes. So there's some things you won't try.
The thing is, I think I'll always give myself another 5 on
You think,
top of whatever
but you don't try. I would like to be behind you one day in the squat rack and say, you are not coming off of here until I say you're coming off of here.
Let's do it.
I hear that as a challenge.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we might need to we might need to video that. Yeah.
No question.
Okay, speaking of that, a little bit of a segue here. Speaking of videoing things in the gym, social media with training has exploded. And I have 3 teenagers. Yours aren't teenagers yet, are they? They're not. That's great, especially related to social media, which I've noticed you're basically off,
on
right?
purpose.
Yeah, you took a break.
So I have specific opinions on this subject.
Yeah, that's why I'm super interested to hear about it. You probably are both aware there's a ton of new research coming out about how bad it is for children. And I would say definitely the teen years, because most of the ones younger than that hopefully don't have it. And in our household, our daughter has specifically chosen not to be on it. She's not on it.
Her.
Yeah, but the boys are on it. And they will tell me things that they both work out. They're all athletes. They're all training. They will tell me things they've seen on TikTok. And we'll talk about it. And I'm trying to explain to them it's not real. and those results aren't real. This is a video. You can't really trust a lot of it. They'll be like, oh, there's some good information. You know, how they talk is they try to convince me they should be on it. So, ready, go. What are your thoughts on this stuff?
That is a tricky one. You know, so I think with social media, if we're talking about bodybuilding and fitness, I used to read Flex magazine religiously, and there were some credible sources in there. I mean, you had all top bodybuilders doing columns, you had top nutritionists, top trainers, you know, putting information out there. And I took all that stuff and I learned as much as I could, and I incorporated a lot of that stuff into my training. Now, a lot of the stuff you see now, people have credibility based on number of followers. Mm-hmm. That information that they're putting out there isn't necessarily beneficial, you know, and maybe not even the safest. And a lot of stuff you see too is, just like you said, not real. You see people who, they always want to post their best, right? You're not seeing warm-up sets. You're not seeing how they progress to that level, right? You know, and I'm sort of guilty of it too in a way, because, you know, the stuff that I put up, I don't put up my warm-up sets. I put my PRs, right? So if somebody's seeing that and they think, okay, well, I have to put that weight on the bar in order to get there, you know, we are not seeing the 30 years of training to actually get there, you know. And I think,
but nobody cares about your warm-up sets. Like to me, that's the weird thing about social media, is it has the more controversial, right? If you say, I hate this exercise, this sucks, then you get tons of views and you get tons of comments, and it's this kind of addictive thing. Or as a female, the less clothing you have on, way more views. It's actually bizarre. And it doesn't really matter what the content is with so many things. I think those of us that care about content, we overthink it. We think, you know, like when it first came out, I would do posts with content, like new research would come out. I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Everybody needs to know this, like this new way of structuring the workout or this new way of doing things is going to be more beneficial. There's a new exercise for low back pain that actually works. We need to tell people about this. Nobody cares. And then I'd do Cityline, and I'd say to Tim, watch, I'm going to post my outfit on Cityline. Oh, 200 likes, all comments. Where did you get that blouse? Like total crap that people care about.
some people do follow, like I do follow for information.
Yeah.
So when you post stuff like that, I think it's beneficial. I like it, you know, and that seems to be sadly where I'm getting a lot of information is from social media, because like Flex magazine, for example, is no longer in
Right.
print.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where people are getting their info. And I do choose to follow credible sources, and I don't really pay attention to a lot of the stuff that I don't feel is, let's just say credible. You know, a lot of people.
It's a good way of looking at it.
It's a really good
Yep.
way of looking
Yeah,
at it.
you got to curate.
And
And I don't think there's
But,
necessarily.
but young minds, sorry to interrupt, young minds may not look at it the same way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're growing up in a world where an expert is not a thing.
Yeah.
We don't have experts anymore. It's
Yeah.
part of the reason, I'm not working as much as I used to, because what my job was doesn't really exist. It's he who shouts loudest. It's he with the biggest following, and you know, debating fact is not a thing that happens on social media. You could say something, and you can even say doctors say, and they don't ask you which doctors. They don't ask you to post the
No references.
No, exactly
Yeah.
right. And even the people consuming the content doesn't know how to check references. So that's how it all died as far as knowing who an expert is. Obviously, those of us that are a little older, we have done our research first, and then we're on social media, so we're able to filter through what is credible and what is less credible. So I think that maybe our algorithm might be different than a 16-year-old who's trying to get into fitness. But I think that you have to look at social media in a way where you're seeing through the window of what it is. It isn't you sitting there ingesting content and entertaining yourself. It is a platform for negativity, as you say. And if you look through it as to who's posting, why they're posting, who's commenting, why they're commenting, as you say, like, why is it that people are more interested in you for your outfit than they are for your intellect, which is actually why you're on City Line, and which is why you've been asked to be on City Line and to be a figure. It's because you know a lot, and we'd like to know some of that. You weren't there for your fashion sense. Maybe you are there now for your fashion sense, but certainly it wasn't
God,
the
no.
original reason.
I've helped her a lot with that, and it really come through for her in that way.
So I talk about social media to who will listen.
We're listening.
Because I started in the entertainment world mistakenly. Like I was a scientist, I was a conservationist, I was an animal trainer, and all of a sudden I was on TV and that was paying for the conservation, so great. And then I started getting love mail or like fan mail. Oh, it was so nice. And then I'd get some handwritten hate mail, and you'd be like, oh, this is the worst. But you would remember the hate mail a lot more than you would remember the people who just said, I love tigers, and you love tigers, we love tigers. That was less memorable. And then YouTube started, and then those comments started, and similarly, and then it grew and it grew and it grew and grew to what it is now. And the one similarity that I find with my experience in animals and fitness is that the people who take the time to comment, it has nothing to do with your post. They're commenting because they identify as fitness experts. You know, I work out all the time. I've watched Andre lift. Now I'm going to point out 2 flaws to his form. I'm going to point out 2 things he could have done better. Or I bet you those weights aren't even real. It has nothing to do with Andre. They don't know Andre. They don't really care. What it does is it shows all their friends or everybody else who's willing to read their comment that they're a fitness expert. And in my case, if I post something with a tiger and I'm like, hey, this is my buddy and this is what we did together, me and this tiger. The reason why I get so many people going, I hate you, didn't you punch that tiger in the nose? Or, you know, like all of these comments that are either negative or it's really just a display for them to show I am the animal expert. I identify. Amongst my friends, I know the most about tigers, so this Dave guy's an absolute idiot or whatever it happens to be. So I think that from my perspective, I realized that the commenting, the social part of the social media side of it, you almost have to learn to ignore. I think that you have to look at it as if you want to be on it and you want to post your workouts and you want to, you know, spit out your information, you have to learn how to take in the compliments for what they're worth and take in the insults for what they're worth and learn how to filter through all that, because otherwise it's a cesspool. It's a pretty
nasty.
awful space to be. And I just say, if you have a teenager, I don't know how a teenager hears, oh, look, those tights make you look fat.
Yeah.
I don't know how they hear that and don't think about it later. I guarantee you 20 you look beautifuls and 1 you look fat. They only think about the you look fat.
Yeah, it's such an interesting way to look at it, that it is that one negative comment that really gets to you always.
Yeah,
you think about that person, you're like, why would you write that?
Yeah, you can feel free out there to Google me, and because I don't work anymore, there's not a lot of the positive stuff. You'll see so many negative things. So there's probably not many people listening and watching that have been insulted as many times as I have been online. And my number one bit of advice for anyone who's interested in living in this space is block and delete.
That's so surprising to me too, that they would have negative comments about you. It's very surprising.
As I said, it really, because, I mean, we all know each other, so I love animals. I went into animals because I loved animals. I did not get into it to be rich or to be famous or to be whatever things
like
that
fitness.
people accuse me of. Right? So when you get accused of doing something bad towards animal or not thinking through the ethics or not thinking through the morals, which is typically what the insult is. It's always some fabricated story about whatever bad thing you might have done. And, I talked to somebody who saw it, or however it manifests. I mean, I had a 20 some odd year career of dealing with it right from handwritten to what we see today. And I had to understand, wow, why, like if you're an animal person and I'm an animal person, why are you attacking me? Why are you making up these stories about me being bad to animals? And that's my part of understanding how to filter the information that's coming in. It has nothing to do with me. Certainly, if I had been beating animals and they said he's an animal beater, then I could be saying to myself, oh, I get where they're coming from here. But if you know that negative comments have just come out of the air, you have to then explain to yourself, well, why would anyone not like me? If you're an animal person, I'm an animal person, why are we not pals? Right. And it's because this is how they flex their I am the animal expert. I know a little bit more than you do. Don't look at Dave hugging that tiger and see that tiger lick his face, because you know what actually he does. He's a real bad guy. So it's kind of like the insider version of it, or in the fitness context, I think like you watch someone squat and someone thinks he should have gone deeper, or someone thinks he had fake plates, or whatever it happens to be. The insult is more about them than it has to do with the person putting the post up there as well.
Okay, in the interest of time, 2 remaining questions, unless you have another question.
No, that was
So
good.
the first
I like
one's
that.
super important, and it is, how did you end up influencing Ricky Bobby's dad and have him put a cougar in the Chevelle?
Rubbin is racing, or is that not Ricky Bobby? No. Second place is first loser.
That's right.
That is
Yeah.
Ricky Bobby's dad.
If you're not first, you're last.
But and I think that is Talladega Nights. Oh no, Rubbin and Racing's Talladega Nights. Not first, you're last. I like that one. The cougar in the car, I love, and I wonder, how we do. If I was to say to Andre, "Hey, okay, Andre, we got to get this shot. They're gonna put a mean, nasty cougar in a car, and we're gonna wrestle him." We'll see.
I think we should have a cougar day here at Totum.
Just
you know,
let some cougars around.
I like
We're
it.
talking about cats, right, guys?
That's correct. That's correct.
Because
Yeah. Well, I mean, either we'll see.
Yeah, both could be
Yeah.
fun. Just the cat ones are faster. I feel like we'd have to
Fair enough.
train a little more to deal with those.
Different
it is
kinds of-
different training.
Different kind of
kinds
training.
fear.
Speaking of training differently, I know it has nothing to do with the question you asked, but do you guys remember, I think it might have been you that I spoke to, that I had to come in here with my stick. So I used to use a stick to fight off a cat attack, and I would be embarrassed to bring my stick in, but I have to the only way to keep a lion or a tiger or a mountain lion or a cougar, I guess, is they have a gag reflex. So if you can get this stick in their throat, but I mean their mouth is this big,
Yeah.
you can, if they keep coming forward, they'll pass out. If they don't come, so it is really your only safety button, for lack of a better word. So I don't know if you remember this, but I used to come in and I would tie a kettlebell on where the heavy bags were. I would swing it and I would hit my stick on the target, and hit my stick on the target. I'd step back, and I would only come in late at night. And I remember asking him at first, I'm like, "Do you mind if I do that?" I think we had just met, because I'd come over from Diesel or whatever, and I think at the time maybe I didn't explain what I did for a living. You just kind of looked at me and you're like,
Who's this weirdo?
yeah. It was like, I don't know. You want to bring a stick?
Well, and if I remember correctly, every time you hit the kettlebell, you'd say, Andre. Andre. Andre.
yeah.
Okay, last question. We've had so many thousands of people write in with this question for the two of you. Thousands.
I hope the question.
Have you actually ever needed the training that Andre gave you, or have you ever needed that sort of training, that a big wild animal, you have to deal with them?
My answer to this question is a lot easier. Yes, I've many times had to use Andre's training, but there was a day, particularly, that I remember Andre actually having the opposite feeling, where he was the attacked person, which was unsuspecting for everyone.
It's the only 2 Totem members that have actually been attacked by lions.
And it's terrifying. And if he tears up while he tells this story, I apologize, because I know it's scarring on the inside and outside.
I'm okay now. I've been able to.
Well, there was a lion. I won't describe how big he was, but I'm sure in Andre's memory, and it was a big cat.
400 or 500 pounds.
And this cat was trying to show off its dominance, and it came for Andre right at a leg, he saw my quads, saw Andre's quads. He's like, I am really hungry. I'm not interested in a medium meal. I'm interested in a real meal.
Oh my God.
This lion went for him.
Zoo. Yep.
So good.
We were at the Bowmanville Zoo, and we were in this large enclosure with this lion. And how big was that lion?
Real story?
Yeah, real story.
120 pounds.
Big enough.
That's
But at 120 pounds, it could absolutely kill you.
any lion
100%.
that is close to me, I'm actually really afraid of. Like, I'm also, if a coyote's running towards me, I'm afraid.
So I was actually playing fetch with this thing, with this huge, it looked like a Swiss ball.
Oh my
But it
God.
was like solid plastic. So I have video of it. So I'd launch this thing, and that lion would just chase it down. And just
Because
jump
it's an elephant toy. So the elephants play with it, they pee on it, poop on it, and all the smells. And the lions get it because they love the smells. So it's like an enrichment toy.
It was
Yeah.
actually a super cool experience. So Dave brought myself and my wife, and we were in this, and Frida's videotaping, and anyways, the lion sort of comes over and then lays down, and I'm like, I'm petting its stomach, and it gave me a little nip on the arm.
It's called spiking. Lions do something called spiking.
Yeah, it barely broke skin. I was embellishing a little bit, but it still counts as a lion attack.
That's right.
Totally.
That's a fact.
Okay.
I've been nipped at by a lion.
Okay.
And I live to tell the tale.
You're still here. Thank goodness. You're both still
Yeah,
here.
exactly right.
I love that story.
That's awesome. And obviously it's happened to you multiple times.
You could probably pick a species, and I've been bit or attacked by it. Yeah.
Let's go snake.
Snake, I've been bit by lots of snakes. Never a venomous one yet. Yeah, I mean, all of these stories are the worst, but one of them, I was in Papua New Guinea, and I woke up at 3 a.m. I was living in this little village, and if you don't want to like dilate your pupils too much when you're waking up in a tent or something, I used the red light. So I was using the red light, but it allows you don't see the camouflage of anything. So I went out of the little hut I was sleeping in, and I went to go to the bathroom, stepped on a snake. Snake bit me in the leg, and then I grabbed the snake. And of course, I'm in Papua New Guinea. I don't know what species it is, but it looks exactly like a viper. And I was like, oh shit, like we're in the middle of nowhere. Like this is it. Like just lay down, call your mom on the sat phone because this is it. And so I grabbed it. Head shape was very bad. And I was like, well, I know they're a rear-fanged snake. So I'm like, usually when they get you, they don't actually break skin. And I look down and I see I'm bleeding. I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is it for me. Like it's neurotoxic snake. I'm going to die. And I ran into, like, there's a bunch of guys by a fire, and they all speak this language called Pidgin. And the biggest one, and they used to call me the giant because the biggest one of them was like 4'8". And they're telling stories, and they don't speak good English. And I have the snake, and I'm trying to show it to them. I'm like, is this venomous? Is this venomous? Am I in trouble? And they're laughing, and they're scared, and they're laughing, and it's like 3 a.m., and they're all high on this thing called beetle nut or something. And all I remember is throwing the snake down, grabbing one of the guys. I'm like, am I going to die? And he laughs, goes, no, it's fine. And I kind of put this little guy down, and I go back to my tent, and I'm like, oh God, that's it. So
I bet you didn't get back to sleep after that.
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right. I don't know if I slept for the rest of the week.
Might have ruined your sleep then.
And you definitely didn't go out of the tent to
I peed in the tent for the rest of it.
Is it a carpet python?
No, I still don't know what species it was. As I say, like it was like it's Papua New
They were
Guinea.
too high to tell you.
Yeah, they were. And they speak Pidgin anyway, so maybe they did tell me. I don't know.
Right, you don't know.
All right, this has been really fun. Thank you guys.
One of my
for
favorites. What
your
fun topic.
Your education with all things wrestling big animals and getting prepared for it. But also, obviously, there is lots of information here that is applicable to anybody that's listening. Is push yourself a little bit harder. Take some of those habits from people that are maybe doing things the way that you would like to do them, but just make some inroads to these sorts of things. So thanks for sharing.
And get ready for
Thanks
the
for having
cougars at Totum.
That's right.
It's gonna be a new class.
Come one, come all.
Try to escape the cougar.
I'm going to bring my big cougar stick. It's going to be wonderful.
Can't wait.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you liked this episode, and if you did, please subscribe and share it with your family and friends.
We would love to hear from you. Follow us on social media. You could send us a DM or even come visit us in real life at Totum on King West. See you soon.